continuing our coverage from the ocean front tonight. We've seen police deploy tear gas at protesters, and people have reported seeing things thrown at the officers. At one point, thousands were marching at the ocean front. Things were calm for several hours, but then they took a turn. 10 on your side's Brett Hall is live there now. And Brett, we just checked in with you a few moments ago while that tear gas was being deployed. What are you seeing now?
Well, the police are continuing to move their presence down Atlantic Avenue from where they were stationed at 17th Street. They're now midway, walking slowly towards 16th Street. They have called this an unlawful assembly. There are two protesters holding a sign that are walking backwards as they walk towards them. But there have been several instances of tear gas being launched in the last several minutes and last, I would say, half hour now, as police try to get the remaining protesters that were out here for a mostly peaceful protest to disperse. Right now, it appears that at some of the restaurants, some of the protesters are trying to put up barriers for the police in the roadway. Trash cans are set up all along the way, and now they are taking tables from Cancun Fiesta and trying to put them up across the road here. But as you can see, this line is marching forward with police in riot gear and with their armored tanks. And there goes another thing of tear gas trying to get the protesters to disperse. Yes?
Brett, give us an idea of what you have seen out there today. You got out there
Taylor, did I hear
a little
you?
bit
Ask a
before
question?
this.
I'm sorry.
Okay, well, you got out there a little bit before this protest started. Give us an idea of what this day has looked like from the beginning to where we ended up, where we are right now.
Oh, there goes another thing of tear gas. Well, this started very peacefully. Started with the Black Lives Matter organizer who was at Rudy Inlet, and the crowd grew there, and they chanted, and no justice, no peace, Black Lives Matter, went all the way down Atlantic Avenue, turned around and came back chanting peacefully. People along the side of the road were basically saying, this is how you protest. They were saying, this is Virginia Beach. This is standing up for what's right, but there's no violence here. And for the most part, most of the protesters did not partake in any sort of violence. And actually, I would be willing to say there were still not many instances of violence now. It was just an unlawful assembly. We did have vandalism of stores. I haven't seen anybody running in and looting stores. Doesn't mean it hasn't happened. But the tone, even of the protesters, is that they didn't want any violence. They just want change. Of course, there are a few in every crowd. We have seen some individuals start throwing rocks, and we have seen some people start to... It looks like another thing of tear gas was just released. This guy's, his eyes are really burning there. I'm not sure if you guys could hear that unlawful assembly. That's what they're shouting from the armored vehicle here. The police, I would say, definitely outnumber, or at least equally number, the protesters that are left here. Many just went running over to the beach. And there goes a group running, the group of police moving right there. Not sure where they are going. Maybe they're continuing to form another line. I'm not sure. But police seem to have cleared Atlantic Avenue all the way this way. It's worth noting that I believe all the access into the oceanfront is cut off right now. I know you cannot come in via over the Rudy Inlet Bridge. You cannot, I don't believe, come in on 264 right now. They've stopped people from coming in order to clear out what they're calling this unlawful assembly. Not sure yet if there are any arrests, but going back to what I saw earlier in the evening, we saw interim police chief Tony Zaccaro. He was walking alongside Deputy Police Chief Patrick Gallagher, as well as the captain of the 2nd Precinct, with the protesters, talking with them, even at some instances, trying to have respectable dialect, and it seemed like many protesters agreed. I saw them talking and taking pictures with some of the officers. Of course, not everybody wanted their presence there and were throwing insults at them, but the police showed incredible restraint. They really didn't engage in that. And I believe they still showed a lot of restraint here this evening. I've never seen any of them raise one of their batons as long as they've been in riot gear. Like I said, really the only thing they have used is the, excuse me, now we do have some of that tear gas coming this way. That's really what their main tool has been throughout this last hour, I would say. It really didn't start to turn dicey until, I would say, 10 o'clock. That's when police were trying to get a cruiser out of the protesters' way, ultimately, in the intersection of Pacific Avenue and 5th Street, and protesters started just hurling water bottles as well as shouting
Brett,
obscenities.
We can hear your voice
there you have the
shaking.
pop of another tear gas,
a bit of that tear
explosive.
Gas. Do you guys need to get further away or to another location?
We're okay. It's a little bit in the air. Like I can see, my vision has no problem. The police now have approached this line.
And Brett, how
here.
many police would
I would
you
say there's
estimate
got to
are
be
out
60
there?
officers right here alone. I know some people went walking.
And for our viewers, I do apologize. If we appear
at the whole resort, there's got to be over 100. Remember.
If we appear to be talking over each other, Brett, there's a little bit of a
sorry,
delay
we keep
for our
cutting each other off.
communication.
It's the delay on our system right now.
But we're doing our best to bring you this coverage live from the ocean front.
So
we see the police in riot gear right now making their way up Atlantic Avenue. Tear gas has been deployed in order to break up those crowds. And now we're looking at footage from Chopper 10. These are our aerials of the scene of what was the protest. This is live right now. So you can see a little bit of haziness from the tear gas. You can see the police cars. You can see the police out there in riot gear. There was a lot of people out there at the ocean front. We don't have any exact numbers of how many protesters, but they filled those streets, and police then said that that was an unlawful gathering, coronavirus. You could only have 10 people at a time, and so they did start to break that up after a few hours, and that is what you're seeing now. And this is just one of many protests that have gone on around Hampton Roads earlier in the evening. Brett Hall and Tamara, who are on the scene right now at the ocean front, they were in Norfolk covering protests there. And the protests so far in our area have been very peaceful. Protests up in Richmond, as we've seen, have turned violent, and the mayor of Richmond did put the city up there under a curfew, mandatory curfew. So we haven't seen that yet in Hampton Roads. And as we've been getting those reports from Brett and from Tamara from the ocean front, this started out very peaceful. It started out as a demonstration that Brett told us mothers would tell their daughters or parents would tell their kids, this is how you protest. Now, somewhere along the line, as it got later into the evening, it took a turn, but they still say there wasn't much violence out there. There was some rocks being thrown. There was some businesses that have some smashed windows and that sort of thing. But so far, none of our reporters on the scene have witnessed any looting. Now we're going to bring Brett back in. So Brett, are you there? Can you hear us?
I can. They were just tear gas, and it really hurt us real quick because now it's a little bit worse. But police have cleared this area. And I just heard another couple bangs, so they're just continuing, it seems, to flush it down Atlantic Avenue. And we are having some... And the police officer was just trying to tell us something. And...
Flush your eyes.
Flush your eyes? All right. The police officer just yelled to us to flush our eyes, seeing that we were struggling. So...
Brett, how much tear gas have you seen being deployed? I know we've seen multiple cans.
We're actually going to go take cover real quick.
Okay, all right. Well, what you're looking at on your scene right now is live shots from Chopper 10. That's from the Virginia Beach ocean front. You can see a bit of a haze over your screen, and that haze is from the tear gas that is being deployed to break up those protesters. Our reporter Brett Hall and our photojournalist that he is working with this evening, Jack Noonan, they are down there covering these protests on the ground. They've been out there for hours since before this thing even started. They are starting to feel the effects of that tear gas. Can't control where it goes, and it's going everywhere, and they're right there in the middle of the action. So they are moving further away and taking cover now. But from what they've told us of this evening, those protests, again, started out pretty peaceful. They even saw leaders in the police force that were out there with the protesters. Brett reported earlier this evening that They saw police officers kneeling with those protesters out there at the Virginia Beach ocean front tonight, and we've seen that at similar protests across the country. But then it was deemed an unlawful gathering because of the coronavirus. Any more than 10 people is considered an unlawful gathering. So after a couple hours of protest, the police decided it was time to break that up and for everybody to go home. And that's what you saw on your screen, police in riot gear and tear gas. And that does it for us right now for Wavy News 10. But we will continue our coverage of these protests tomorrow morning on Wavy News 10 today. Our morning team will be in here with coverage starting at 4:30, and they will have the latest on the developments overnight. But again, also remember, our coverage continues online, so you can always check wavy.com for those updates, as well as our Facebook page and our Twitter and our Instagram. So however you like to get your information, we'll put it out there for you. Thank you so much for joining us here tonight. Stay safe, everyone, and we'll see you back here tomorrow morning.